Welcome back into another Husky Talk. We have Joe DeRoche-Duffin play with the Hook C 2015-2016, which I can't believe it was only 2 seasons, Duff. It seemed much longer than that. But, hey, how you doing out there in California, and what have you been up to lately?
Doing good. Weather's great as usual. We had, I think, 1 day of rain in the last 2 months, so not too bad. I've just made it finally transitioning out of baseball, kind of growing up a little bit, realizing that, got to make a career, got to move on at some point. Still will try to find a way to stay connected with it. But other than that, pretty good. How you doing, Jonesy?
I'm good, man. Everything's good. Everyone's healthy, so we're just getting by. I wish we had today was 82 and sunny, so we're starting to get towards that California weather. But yeah, hey, just let's go back a little bit to that recruiting process for you as you're coming from Cyprus all the way to the East Coast at UConn. Kind of what were you looking at in terms of options other than UConn, and then ultimately what made you decide that you wanted to go cross country and be a Husky?
Yeah, well, it was a really interesting recruiting process. I guess you could say, under-recruited out of high school. I had one offer. I think I also signed early, but it was interesting because I went to Cypress College. Cypress College is like the D1 of JCs, and so it was kind of interesting. I talked to Houston. I talked to South Alabama. I went to South Alabama the week before I went on my UConn recruiting trip, and funny enough, another American conference called me while I was on my recruiting trip with UConn. And when I was on that recruiting trip, I was with Davey and Radu, and I think Melly showed up too. But I made my decision the night that I got there. Cincinnati called me that night, and I said, nope, I'm on a recruiting trip with UConn, and I'm going to go here. I made that decision before I went home. But it was fun. I honestly had the weirdest recruiting trip because I had a plane issue flying out there on Friday night. Got late, missed my flight from Atlanta to Connecticut. Had to stay over in Atlanta. Didn't get out there until Saturday noon, I'd say, around noon. So I literally had about under 24 hours to really get a feel for it. But the coaching staff had, I guess you could say, big trust in, because they never actually watched me play. It was all of video recruiting, hearing reports, talking to people like Davey and Pickler at Cypress, and that's kind of it was just like the trust that they had in me as an athlete and as a baseball player kind of just pushed me that way. So
What's your first impression when you see J.O. Christian Field?
Really nice grass, small stands, but really nice grass. These kids that are coming in now, man, they're lucky because we were supposed to get turf senior year, and I was like, I really can't wait to come out for the alumni game. I'm going to make that this year, finally.
Awesome.
And hopefully they let me use a BSR bat so I can hit some balls really.
Yeah, get that right out of there.
I want to hit one off of Shankman, man. Yeah, no, it was a beautiful campus, beautiful playing surface. I came from another school at Cypress where we had 2 little stands and chain link fence outfield, so anywhere I was going to go, it was going to be like, oh, wow, this is a D1 field. This is where the elite players play. And so it was exciting. I was ready to go.
I know we're going to mostly talk about UConn stuff, but I know some younger kids are probably going to watch this. Talk a little bit about your JUCO experience. I know a lot of kids across the country, this is a route that they utilize, that they're so appreciative that, a lot of these D1 bounce backs, they go to a great program, then go to JUCO, and then so appreciative to get back to D1 that, these guys are mostly, those team guys. Just talk a little bit about your JUCO experience and how that helped you propel into a great college career. And we know you would have had a great pro career if one of those minor league teams was able to throw a flyer your way.
Yeah. Well, out of high school, most high school kids and young kids, everyone has this this idea that the only place they can go to is a Division I college, and I was one of those kids out of high school. I was like, okay, I got to sign with a Division I college. Cypress recruited me out of high school. They wanted me to go straight there. But I made that decision. I'd say it is if you're not ready for Division I baseball, don't make that decision and go somewhere where you can actually develop, not sit behind someone. You get playing time, especially if you're in California like I was. You start practicing in August, and you go all the way through until June because it's a longer school year, and you have these facilities all the time. But it is that great, I guess you could say, trampoline to all these different routes, because the team I was with had 7 bounce backs. Mm-hmm. Two of us were from UCSB, guys from UC Irvine, guys from Cal State Fullerton. So people bash JUCOs these days, but I think it honestly is one of the best places for you to develop, and also just understand what your options are, and so you don't have to be rushed into making a decision. If I didn't go to that school, I wouldn't have been the player I was at UConn. I would have still been this immature, not immature mentally, but just immature with approaches, how I played defense, how I ran the bases. You learn all those fundamentals, and it kind of just they get drilled into you. Yeah. Because if you don't understand those fundamentals at a JUCO, you're never going to get a chance to play at Division I, because you're never going to get seen at the JUCO because you're not going to play. Mm-hmm. So I think it was probably the best decision I ever made to go to Cypress. And if anyone ever doubts that or kind of knocks that, just look at all these players. All these players gone to JUCO. Bryce Harper went to JUCO. Mm-hmm. Obviously that's a different situation, but if a guy like that goes to a JUCO, then really anyone can.
So take me through that first fall, making the transition to a whole new campus, a whole new part of the country, all your new teammates. Who were some of the guys that you gravitated towards in that early portion? And how were those first fall scrimmages as you got used to being in stores?
Oh God, I was terrible. I had just come from, I had been playing Corvallis summer ball all summer, and I had a great summer. And so I thought I was just gonna come in and kind of just show off, not in that way, but I was gonna come in and perform immediately, and that was not the case. You're facing guys like Cross, to Backman, K. You got Max Slade throwing 92 miles an hour sidearm, almost hitting you every time. It was a wake up call that I needed to put in a lot more work than I had. Because in summer ball, it's you show up, you play, you get your work in, you go home, you do it again every day. So it's you're getting yourself into a routine, and it was a big wake up call. Getting in the gym, UConn baseball, they lift like a football program. Mm-hmm. I loved it because I'm a big, strong guy. But that was different. But just that leadership from the seniors, to Backman, I missed a voluntary one time because I thought it was voluntary, and I got the most aggressive text message from Jordan to Backman. And I will say I never made that mistake again.
And he's one of the most laid-back guys out of anyone on that team.
Oh, yeah, but if there's anyone that cared about that team more than Backman, I don't think there was. I think that was his little baby, Mm-hmm. But just the overall chemistry of the team. Everyone was cool with each other. There was no cliques. There was no I'm better than you. It was always pushing each other, even in that aggressive Northeastern way, you know, where it's like you're just a bum or that kind of stuff. But it definitely pushed me to have a great year in 2015. And I do definitely thank the seniors on that. And even like the guys that were younger than me. You watch Kay work, like Kay didn't work in the weight room, but like I was playing long toss every day. Everyone was finding a way to get better. And then you have the performances you have from Vinny and Melly, you know, guys who are younger in the team, but definitely acted in a leadership role, or just you had great templates to follow, I guess you could say.
What memories kind of jump out at you for that 2015 season as you start the year and then go out throughout that season?
Well, obviously, even in I think it was a 16-3 blowout against FAU. We lost the first game.
You homer in the first game?
What?
Did you homer in that first game?
Yeah, I did. Right off the end of the bat. I think it got like 6 inches over the fence.
Yeah.
And I surprised myself, honestly. And then I actually threw in a relief for that game, too.
That's right.
Yeah. But I obviously wasn't throwing that hard, and so I got whacked around. But definitely just just getting your feet wet that first weekend, especially playing. FAU has always been a pretty good program, you know, and like Pender says it all. Coach Pender says it all the time that like we are always awful in our first weekend, and it obviously showed. I think we got swept.
Yeah. Couple tight ones after that first one.
But it was kind of like that breath, like that deep breath you could finally take and say like, okay, the first 3 games is over. Now we can go. And I think we went to Siena the next weekend. I believe it was either that or FIU.
Yeah, Port St. Lucie, I think Siena, yeah.
And obviously we flipped that switch because we played real good baseball that weekend. But I'd say in the first couple of weeks, definitely my favorite memory was playing on the Mets in the Mets minor league fields and their high A field in Port St. Lucie, and like getting to hang out with David Wright, watching Bartolo Colon play long toss, watching bullpens from every reliever, and I think DeGrom was probably throwing a bullpen too. You know, just seeing how they went about their work and what you could do to kind of emulate that and learn from it. So I think that was probably my favorite early on 2015 memory of that year.
When did you seem to get comfortable and you saw your name in the lineup more and more as that year goes on? Was there a series, a moment where you're like, okay, like I'm here to stay?
Oh, it was definitely that Siena series.
Yeah.
I think the first game I got on base all 5 times, and it made myself believe that I could do it again. You know, play Division I level. You know, because I had an okay series at FAU. I think I went like 2 for 8 or 2 for 9 or whatever it was. I'm not happy about it, but I definitely would say I flipped a switch and was finally comfortable and able to settle in at the plate that second series, and then I was able, and then once we got into conference play is when I really started to show, you know, and I just think that was because like we talk about the clutchness. I just feel like I live for that kind of stuff, and I want to be in those situations.
Yeah.
You know, like I tried to make every situation a 9th inning 2-out situation when I was at the plate, just because I wanted to make that impact, and that's what the coaching staff recruited me for, was to make that impact. So that's what I think it's at certain points I put too much pressure on myself for that, but that's, I think, when I started to settle in as well.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm just going off memory here, but the first time I vividly remember the clutch stuff really coming out was that wild rubber game down in New Orleans against Tulane. Davey hits the game-tying home run. They call it back. They say it's a double. I don't think we score that inning. And then the 9th inning, I think we're down to our final out, and you go Oppo Taco way into the parking lot to tie the game. We eventually win in extras. Take me through the memories of that game. I know I had you write down a list of top games as a Husky, but I got to think that's going to be somewhere on the list. Even though
that's number one. Like individually, that's number one. I wouldn't say that's my favorite memory. Obviously, 2016 championship is my favorite memory. But yeah, like that game was just nuts. You know, you got Trevor Holmes screaming. You got Trevor Holmes and Coach Max screaming at the first base umpire, and you got the actual Tulane fans in the outfield saying it was a home run on Davies. It definitely was. That thing was like 3 feet above the fence, hit the net, fell down. But, you know, we're in New Orleans. The South is really passionate about their sports. Yeah. And so they got a gift there. And then all I knew I needed to do was just actually make contact. That guy was throwing 96. I think it was Jabot. Jabot was throwing like 96.
Yep. Is he in the big leagues?
I think he's in like AAA or AA. I think. Yeah.
I have to look.
He's throwing like I think he's throwing like 98, 100 now. So I got that on my plate. I did that. You know, I can look back 30 years and just be like, in my day, I did this kind of thing. But yeah, that game was nuts. And actually, I only told some of my friends this back recently, but when I walked up to that plate and that at bat, there was a guy in the stands. He was like, he couldn't fit in a seat. He was like 450 pounds in overalls. And he told me to get on a treadmill.
Right above our dugout?
No, right above the Tulane dugout. He told me to get on a treadmill. And so I think I kind of used that as motivation. And then so I got him back by hitting the bomb. And then I come back in, and I think Vinny just punches me in the chest with excitement, and everyone's going nuts. I think that was probably the coolest game I've ever been a part of.
And it's wild, too, because I know Tulane fans are probably just behind UCF fans in terms of seeing Duff late in the game. I mean, that Clearwater game, that's one I'll never forget. Down.
Oh, yeah, actually, that's what I put down.
Yeah, down 5, going to the 8th. Everyone, I mean, it just seemed like that was the end of the road. And then just to come storming back, and then you cap it off with the 2-run homer. Kay comes in, locks it down. I mean, that was just a gut punch.
I watched that video a while back, and I just can't forget how bad your voice cracked on that home run call. I was laughing so hard. But yeah, no, that game was nuts. You know, obviously they're gonna try and pitch around Vinny, try and pitch around Bobby, because that was my first game ever in the 4-hole that year. Because Davey got thrown out. You know, the game. I think it was the UCF game, though, like the 11-inning one. And so I had struggled with the curveball all year, and they brought in I forgot his name, but he threw me 3 straight curveballs. You know, or actually 4 straight curveballs. He had me in a 1-2 count, and for some reason he threw that thing at my chest, and all I had to do was put it in the air. So it kind of just made my job easy, I guess you could say. But that was probably the craziest inning I've ever seen, with the ball going through the second baseman's legs. John Testani's little blooper, like 6 inches over the shortstop's head. Then Vinny's triple. Then Bobby's double down the line. It's like that was like just meant to happen. Yeah. Like we didn't just take that game from Tulane. We took it they gave it to us, and we had a little bit of luck on our side. You know, but that was so cool, you know. And then the next game we played ECU, even though we lost that game. I forgot that head coach's name, but he came up to me. Godwin, yeah. He came up to me, because I was in that same situation late in the game.
Right, yep.
And I got smoked in the shoulder, you know. And he comes up to me, he's like, I wasn't going to let that happen to us. You know, so I just I'd rather have him hit you. than have you hit the bomb. So that was nuts. I wish that we could have finished that one off too, because that would have been even crazier of a story than 2016.
Yeah.
But
Not
gosh,
such a good team too. We made noise
yeah,
in days for sure.
yeah, we would have gone a long ways in that tournament too, and we should have even been in that tournament. I still get annoyed by that because
Yeah.
that team was just as good, if not better, than our 2016 team.
Mhm.
I think we just had better performances in like those one-run games in 2016. You had a more mature K, you had a unreal Kate, and then you had a Wills that would actually be able to go long into games. So I think that's what kind of pushed us over the edge.
Any moments I didn't touch on in 2015 that really stood out to you?
Well, I think I totally forgot about this, but before that two-lane home run, that was my first game back from a head injury.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had gotten a concussion, so that was my first day out of concussion protocol, and because I wasn't even supposed to be on that flight, but
Now, yeah.
Anders brought me along because I was progressing my concussion enough that I might be able to, like, on a chance that I might be able to play on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
But that just makes it even a better story, I guess you could say.
Was USC Upstate in 15?
USC Upstate was in 20.
That home run, like.
Oh, that one off the building?
Maybe your favorite. That may be one of the furthest balls I've ever seen hit that field.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that one. Yeah, that was off. I think it was in Atlanta in the apartments, right?
Yeah, dead center, like halfway up the building.
Yeah, and that guy wasn't even throwing. I think he was throwing knuckleballs. So I somehow still hit that ball super far. Like, I can understand it if the guy was throwing like 92, 93, but I think that ball was coming in at like 78 miles an hour. So
that's just muscle. It's muscle.
Yeah, I know. I just wish I was as strong as I am now back then.
Yeah, what have you been doing? Because you're in great shape right now. What have you been doing? You're doing like CrossFit?
Actually, not much. I've been doing a lot of cardio. Like, speaking of injuries taking my career away from me kind of thing. So 2017, I got hit in the face, broke my jaw. Had an elbow injury, which actually I think happened by my own fault during my UConn tenure. Mm-hmm. That's why I think I wasn't able to throw as hard as I did on the mound anymore. But I had a reoccurring injury from 2013 at Cypress. I got hit in the arm and broke my arm. Well, I finally had surgery on that in March. And so because when it broke, it extended, so I had to get it. Actually, my arm, my radius bone, my ulna bone, cut in half and shortened. So I got this nice. Oh
wow!
I got this nice plate with 7 screws in it now, and I'm finally been cleared to work out again. So I've just been walking a lot and running a lot, which I wish I would have done back then. But let me turn the light on. It's so bad in here. But yeah, so finally been able to. I'm lucky that I have my own home gym, so I can work out and get something in all the time. But I definitely had a goal before that I was going to go into bodybuilding a little bit too, or at least powerlifting, which I might still do down the road. And so I think that's what's kind of done that for me. But also my 2016 ankle injury really built up my upper body and actually made me a lot bigger up top. So like when I just cut the weight, I looked a lot more muscular. Obviously, DP Doe kind of took away from that and all those wonderful places at UConn.
7 of your former teammates asked in the Instagram question of what was Duff's DP Doe order.
Well, it depended. If it's probably coming from Nico, which there might be a Nico in there, or at least Jason, I don't know. My favorite thing, well, they came out with it. Obviously, remember that kid that got arrested in the student union?
Yeah, the macaroni kid.
Yeah, it's the macaroni kid. Well, DP Doe came out with a jalapeno bacon mac and cheese because of that. And that was my go-to. That or the buffer zone, obviously, which we started calling it buffer zone because I hate that thing so much.
Yep.
And I think that's in my exit meeting in 2015, that was the only thing the coaches had for me to say was just like, lay off the food, man. Like, honestly, like, as long as you don't eat so much, then you probably will lose the weight because you work your butt off in the gym. So, but it was definitely buffer zone and the definitely the mac and cheese zone. And if it was 2 for $5, then obviously I'd get over. So, but yeah, definitely that. Obviously, there was 2. Yeah, I had to hit that on Tuesdays.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Gosh, now I'm realizing why I was so large.
Hey, so as we go into 2016, you obviously your first year at UConn was a success. You hit 12 bombs and you played really well, but you go just to another level that senior year. The only Husky, granted we never go back to the American Conference, the only Husky to ever win American Conference Player of the Year. 17 homers that year, I think 55 RBIs, north of 270. It was just a incredible year. One of the best for any. I think J-Ho put you number 2, I think, offensive seasons, 2 or 3.
Yeah. Obviously, I'm not going to be like Springer or Old. Those things their seasons were nuts.
But just take me through
but
that.
They also have the better bats,
2016.
Well, I went into 2016 knowing I could have had a better 2015. Just because I started off slow, I guess you could say. In my head, like that's just how I felt. So the coaches every fall, at the end of the fall, have you write down a goal sheet of what you want to achieve, both academically and athletically. And my goal was 2 things, and I still have it to this day. It sits in my room. It's obviously in a drawer because it's been a while. But my goals were to win the Conference Player of the Year and win the conference championship. I wrote that down. I handed it to him, and I told him that's what was going to happen. And obviously, my year didn't start off as well as I wanted it to. I was got 195 by Columbia, but then we went on. We finished up that spring break trip, and I think that's when it kind of changed for me because Coach Penders and I were putting in a lot of extra work. Coach Horgan and I were putting in a lot of extra work on the side, just because I knew I felt like I was failing the team at that point. And so I think it was just more motivation to kind of catch up, I guess you could say, to where everyone else was at the end of the year. And then obviously just I was put in a position that year where I had to succeed for the team to succeed. And so it was going to have to happen or I was going to get moved out of the lineup. And I understood that. I was also stronger that year, healthier that year. And I think it was just a culmination of things. So just like coming together, and then having the mental toughness to get through that slump, and then understand where I made my mistakes and where I could improve, and then where I could be consistent at to try and I guess you could say be successful.
Well, once you got into conference play, I mean, the American Conference didn't want to see you after. I mean, UCF, you pretty much Terry Rooney kind of you destroyed their season with those 2 huge home runs at JOC. I remember the 2 homer games. We'll go in the Holy Cross game because that was one that I'll always remember. Holy Cross and Northeastern with the multi-home run games. But just take me through, how locked in did you feel during that stretch when you're at the plate?
Oh, like it felt really easy, honestly. Like everything looked like it was coming in slow motion. I was picking stuff up before it was like right when it was coming out of the pitcher's hands. Like we'll go to the Holy Cross game. Like I got in a little trouble with the coaches that game.
A play out in right field, maybe.
I still don't think I did anything wrong. I guess according, I talked to Nesdo about this. We talked about this, but they said I jogged after the ball. I know I didn't because I don't jog. It's like it's go or no go.
Yeah.
But so I came in getting screamed at, not knowing what I was doing wrong, and so obviously that kind of like pissed me off. It made me angry. But I didn't take it out on anybody. I just took it into my at bats. And so plus that same game, I also forgot my bat at home that game. So I used Willie's bat.
Oh.
Yeah, I used Willie's bat that whole game. And I was playing with a chip on my shoulder, like I usually do anyway, but it was like this. It was just I was being psycho that game. I needed to I was doing everything 100% at the plate, off the field, on the field. I was locked in, and that was also one of the games where I think I realized I could play. I not realize I could play at that level, but I could do it consistently. Both defensively, offensively, and that was just a fun game for me looking back on it. Not to be in the game, obviously, that looking back, that was probably the game that kind of shaped the rest of the year for me, I guess you could say.
What was that UCF series like for you? I know that's a series I'll always remember, just the come from behind wins, and they bring in the lefty against you, and we're thinking, what the heck are they doing?
Yeah, I never understood that because people brought in a lot of lefties on me, and that was my favorite thing to hit in the world. Only person I never liked to hit that was left-handed was Anthony Kay, and he played on the same team.
Yeah.
So I don't understand it. I never will. But like one of those home runs, there was a base open. Like why were you even pitching to me? Not to sound cocky or anything, but like from a baseball IQ standpoint, I don't understand how that makes sense. But thankfully they did, and I had a chance to put us over the edge, because if the team didn't do what they did, I think we had a 5-run inning the inning before or that inning.
Yep.
It wouldn't have mattered if I hit a home run or not, That's where I'm talking about, like, that's where we played as a team a lot better that second year. And put me gave me those opportunities to be successful and have those clutch moments, because, like, if Jack doesn't get on, Willie doesn't get him over, Bob doesn't get him in, I can't hit Bob in and put us over the edge. And, like, even one of those games, Bob got robbed of a home run the inning before, but we were already put in that situation. We had a 4-run inning that inning and had a chance to go ahead there. And so it's just like, that was just a better, I was my favorite. 2016 was my favorite playing year of my life because of that. Like, you had Willie, who was hitting 340, Jack stealing every base, going first, third, and everything. It made my job really easy to hit people in because there was always somebody on base.
Yeah.
What
So obviously we get down to our favorite place, Clearwater, Florida. You win Conference Player of the Year. We win the championship down there, and then get to go to a regional. What was that 2-week experience like? Being able to win that championship, hoist that trophy, and then, tie game with the number 1 team in the country in Gainesville against the Gators. And you're one swing, one pitch away from possibly being 2-0 in that bracket, having a shot at a super regional.
That I will look back on that fondly for the rest of my life. That was unreal. Because, like, we just ran through that tournament. Like, we had one hiccup against Memphis, but we had already put ourselves in a position where we could have that one hiccup and get away with it, trying to save pitching. But that was just fun, you know. You had everyone was hitting 500 in that tournament. Every pitcher on the mound had a sub 1 ERA. I
When
think
cheese
except
is
for like
raking, that's when you know.
yeah, Cheese had like 11 hits that tournament. You know, like I had to do a lot of cardio that tournament. I look back on it happy, but I was huffing and puffing when I get back out to the field. Um, but it was obvious. It was really fun, you know. And then walking into Florida, everyone, you know, people ask you after the fact, were you afraid to play the number one team in the nation? Like, were you nervous that they were going to run you over? Like, no, like we walked in, we felt like the number one team in the nation.
Mm-hmm.
Like we went into that game. I mean, we're up 4-1, and then Anthony, I think, had his injury that game.
Mm-hmm.
So like, think about it. If like all the stars aligned, or like all the stars aligned for Florida to win that game,
Mm-hmm.
like they didn't take it from us. We didn't give it to them. There was just like things we couldn't control in that situation that didn't allow us to win that game. But that atmosphere was nuts. I think it was 9,000 people.
Yeah.
It's one of the coolest experiences I've ever been a part of, and I definitely miss it. You know.
Yeah. Well, I was just
Watching Bob hit a ball over the right when I'm on deck, so I had the best view in the house of Bob hitting 98.
Oh.
I think about 470 feet over the scoreboard, and just watching every single Florida fan just slink down in their seats, and I think maybe a couple probably left already.
Yeah.
So.
It's crazy. We went toe to toe, and there's guys like the guy who hit the go-ahead home run, Jonathan India. He was a freshman. I think he's like a top 5 overall pick in the MLB draft. 2 years.
Yeah, he was. We had Alonso, who
knocked out Puck, like crazy. And then they bring in Dane Dunning. It's like, oh, here's another first round guy that's coming out of the pen.
Yeah, and then you had Pete Alonso, you know, playing first base, and he hit a home run off of us. You know, you had all these big names, but like if you think about it, we had all these big names too.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, we didn't have as many number one draft picks as they did. You know, They play in the SEC, but I think we had the better overall team.
Yeah.
You know, from top to bottom, experience and talent as well.
I mean, you just look at that lineup with you, Bobby, Willie, Cheese. I mean, Sonny. Like, it's such a who do we have behind the plate?
Yeah, Susie, like the best best catcher arm I've ever seen.
Like, that team's loaded. It's fun to look back and reminisce. What do you miss, most about your time at UConn? I know one of my memories I'll always remember, it wasn't even on the field. It was actually during one of our toughest weekends out at UCSB, and we get swept. They're all tight games, but your family was gracious enough to host us for a get-together, and that was one of my favorite moments, getting to eat, play a little wiffle ball, just hang out with the guys. I think that's near the top of my list of great memories, just kind of hanging with the guys and getting to know everyone more on a personal level.
Yeah, I think it's those moments, like everyone asks you if it's the baseball moments that you remember. It's not. It's like the going and hanging out at Tabachman's house for a barbecue, or going to the baseball house and just hanging out. Like those are the kind of things. But obviously, like that cookout, that was just really cool. Have everyone out of their baseball minds, just hanging out, relaxing, just being like a big family. And I look back at that, and it still feels like that. Like I talk to some of my old teammates all the time, because it's like those are like, they're literally like brothers now. You leave, you check on each other. You see how everyone's doing, you see what they're up to. It's a really cool feeling. And then obviously when you have like those alumni games and those those banquets and stuff, then you get to like reminisce. And, like that's when I noticed that like when we'd have our alumni games as a player there, you'd see those alumni come back, like guys from the 80s, guys from the 90s, guys from the 2000s, guys from 2 years ago. And you just see how everyone, like, you don't lose a minute when you see each other again, like getting on the call with you. Like, it's not like I haven't seen you in what, 3.5 years.
Yeah.
But it's like I talked to you last week.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty cool feeling, and that's only something I've ever felt with UConn baseball and UConn baseball players and family. It's a really, really cool experience.
Yeah. Hooksy family for sure. I know Coach always says that he doesn't take any credit for it. It's kind of the players that have created it with those alumni. The alumni are so gracious to talk to the current guys, and it kind of just keeps evolving and evolving. What are some, whether it was from the coaches or whatnot, what are some of the life lessons, the things that you learned in your time in stores that you've taken with you now, as you move on throughout life?
Yeah, I was actually talking about this last week with some family, but the thing that I've applied to my regular life is actually ACE,
Mm-hmm.
the ACE terminology. Having the right attitude about everything, concentrating on what you're doing, and then putting the effort in. Like Coach always talked about being a blue collar. Being a blue-collar program, you worked for everything. You never were given anything. You always had to earn it. And I feel like that is the most important lesson that we've ever learned, because like it's just going to make you successful in whatever you want to do. If it's that opening a business or just working for a company or being a baseball player, like being an athlete of any kind, that's going to help propel you to higher levels, because that's just controlling the things that you can control. You don't worry about, you don't stress out about things that you're not able to change and you're not able to fix, but you can find ways that you can control to put yourselves in more successful positions in life, So I think that's the most important thing. And it's definitely helped me out. It's getting through all this adversity that I've had to deal with,
Hey, any top games that we did not hit on your list? Is there anything you got written down that we didn't talk about?
No, I think you got all of it. The thing that it's not games, it's events.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the two things I cherish the most over every home run, over anything, was the 2 times I stole home.
Yeah.
I was, I was the fast. I wasn't Jack Sundberg's speed, but I was the only guy on the team for 2 years to steal home. And I will always. I'll probably, if I see anyone or talk to anyone, I will probably hold that over them. Just like, yeah, you might have had a better average than me, but did you steal home? Did you,
Yeah.
Well, I do have to thank Cheese, because that guy really was clumsy and knew how to fall over.
The dead duck play, right?
Yeah, the dead duck play.
Oh man, hey, I'm so excited to hear that you're coming out for the alumni game. That's gonna be great. Cross our fingers of when that will be. Hopefully this is passed and we'll be able to do that in the new stadium, which would be great, just to get as many of you guys back as possible, especially since we have such a great contingent of you guys now out on the West Coast that J-Mac and those guys have built. So super excited for that. Hopefully we get that in late September. Yeah,
I'm really excited, and I will be there no matter what. So, plus I just want to actually see the alumni win for once,
Yeah.
If I can do anything to help that.
Mound.
Well, if I get on the mound, I might just like throw at them. I don't know. Like be like the dirty boys from the Reds and just start throwing each other and getting fights, and I don't know. But so probably don't put me on the mound, but definitely put me at play.
Man, in these times, I'm so looking forward to that, to get everyone together and be able to see some some of the guys
Yeah.
instead of doing all these Zoom calls. But
Yeah, like that. That's like even today, like with the questions that you, the ask thing you did today. Like Bob came and texted me, and he goes, "Well, question one, you only got those. Was the only reason why you got all those fastballs was because I was in front of you?" I was like, that honestly has does not change anything, because I'm actually protecting you.
yeah.
But number two is us like, were we the best 3-4 combo that college baseball has ever seen? And I 100% agree with that. There will never be another Bob and Duff. I don't care who they recruit, who UConn recruits. Like, I will always attest to that.
I mean, everyone goes on their journey and their routes to get to where they go. I just wish we had 2 more years of you.
Oh yeah, I wish I would have gone. I said this all the time too. While I was there, I wish I would have been at UConn since I was a freshman, because that was the best place to prosper, to grow, to learn about life and baseball. I'm still thankful for the coaching staff, because like I had an experience that most people didn't. Like I went to a school where I wasn't like cherished. I wasn't taught. I wasn't told how to do things. I just sat there and worked. Obviously, I worked my butt off on the side, but that was the thing. Like one thing that you asked earlier about the recruiting process. It was the one thing that really sold me was just how honest and open the coaching staff was, and what their intentions were. They asked me that I think a long time ago. It was like, what made you make that decision? And it was just, I knew that what Coach Penders and Coach Horrigan and Coach Mack were saying was real. No matter if I liked it or not, like they were just saying it to help me. There was nothing behind the scenes. There was no shadiness. It was just clear cut, honest, and truthful. It was the most reassuring aspect about the coaching staff that I loved. So.
Hey man, this has been great. I love catching up. It's awesome. We'll see you in the fall. We'll cross our fingers, make sure that we get that going for the alumni game. Hopefully all of us can get together. But great catching up. Hey, thanks for taking the time. I know you're
no problem, man. I enjoyed it.
Awesome. So. Hey, we'll talk soon. Stay safe. Say hi to the family for me. Enjoy them during this time. All right.
Yeah, absolutely. Good to see you, Jones.